Without them, there probably wouldn't be life on this earth as we know it. These mightily important, tiny little insects were found in this abandoned home, and I marveled at being able to see them clearly for the first time. There were about 4 of these constructions, and then these small round mounds. They seemed to be quite determined to just remain in their positions and cover this whole dome, whatever it was that they were covering. These sheets of honeycombs seemed quite different though. Each bee seemed to know exactly what it was going to do. There was no fuss, no drama. Each one was very, very calmly getting on with the business. It seemed there was hive maintenance, that some of the constructs were being filled or cleaned or built. It was very, very hard to see in the comb. We moved very close, and I was a bit nervous, to be honest, because if they suddenly swarmed, I would have been in trouble. What I did notice was that where the big honeycombs were, that there was a constant murmur, and as I understand, it's the fluttering of wings on the inner parts of the construction where the bees are actually fanning to keep the temperatures constant. There was obviously activities going on inside that I couldn't see, and I was intrigued to know exactly what that would have been and just exactly where the queen bee would have been itself. I have no doubt that this whole hive would have come to her defense if necessary.
There are quite a few hippos out of the water during the days, partly because of the overcast weather that is still lingering around, but also the abundance of grass in close proximity to the water has really spurred them into a feeding frenzy. Hippos are very nervous animals when they're out of the water, and very seldom do you get an opportunity to get very close to them. All hippos have this deep water, big pools that they use as their little sanctuary that keeps them safe. But when you do find hippos that have been feeding out in the interior, away from the safety of their pools, and they're caught in slightly smaller pools in transit, they do get kind of nervous. And if they have an opportunity and enough space to move from there and move on towards their deeper pool where the safety is, they do. Especially when they do have young calves. In the shallows of the Okavango Delta, where little fish hide, it takes a specialist hunter to try and catch them. Black egrets, distinct by their grey legs and yellow feet, have really come up with an interesting way of trapping and catching these little fish. They are otherwise known as umbrella birds, making a dome shape with their wings as they step through the shallows. It filters the light and gives them good access to see into the water where the fish are, and also fish are drawn to dark areas of vegetation cover or lily pads, for example. And in forming the umbrella and creating that shade, fish that are scattered by its approach head for those dark areas and take refuge right underneath the trap that has been set. It's an incredible adaptation that these birds have learned to hunt. Quite effective and quite efficient. They do seem to catch a lot of fish. Several here taken, little minnows, and this slightly bigger, almost tilapia looking fish was a prize catch for this black egret.
I noticed this tiny little cone shell on the bottom. Now this is something I've never really observed before, but here it has this strange looking proboscis, and as it sits on the floor, the proboscis seems to be going out and searching for tiny food particles in amongst the sand and the broken shells. It has two eyes which stick out on these stalks, and I would imagine this gives a pretty good perspective of the goings on around it. It almost seems to me reminiscent of an elephant's trunk, as it seems quite flexible, and towards the end of it, it has almost a suction cup, something that's quite capable of grasping. And it's obviously goes about at night under the cover of darkness, searching for any tiny morsels of food it may come across. And this is quite an odd sight. Here you have a beautiful oyster, the black and yellow mantle, but perched right on top was this mischievous looking hermit crab. It's obviously looking for some kind of food particles, and it's decided that up top here is its best chance of coming across any. Now this tiny little fish grabbed my attention just because of the odd way it swims about and moves. It's very tiny, probably only about an inch long at most, and it has this large dorsal fin. Its brightly colored black and yellow coloring indicates to me that it's one of the sweet lips family. Now these sweet lips grow to be quite impressive fish, and this will grow to be the size of at least 1.5 or 2 kilograms. Now this is one of the mantis shrimp, and this is one of the spearing mantis. It's quite an odd looking character and looks like a bit of an army utility vehicle. And it has this fascinating ability to catch its prey by shooting out its forearms, which is armed with dagger-like contraption and barbs on it, and is able to ensnare any unsuspecting fish. It lives in these cylindrical holes within the sand, and it's quite camouflaged as well. And you can see the very compound eyes that's situated on top of the head, and this gives it great vision. And once again, upon returning to just where we exit the water, came across this very healthy looking shoal of mangrove snapper. It's lovely to see these fish in such numbers. Just another little indication of just how healthy this estuary actually is.